They informed us Antarctica was all ice. They lied to us. A drone took video so horrific that it caused an instantaneous military lockdown, and the world was never supposed to view it. Now, the American government is accused of covering up one of the most frightening secrets of our era, an alien base hidden deep beneath the Antarctic ice. But is it true? Did a Navy engineer actually see flying disks, strange power outages, and scientists who just disappeared? And why are whistleblowers being cautioned, or intimidated, into quiet? In this video, we expose what military sources, investigative reporters, and declassified records now confirm about Antarctica's darkest secret. From lost research parties to planes mysteriously losing power in flight, what you're about to discover might alter the way you perceive history itself. A drone was released by an independent research team over East Antarctica early in 2025 that photographed the unthinkable. The flight was straightforward: monitor ice patterns. But while the drone flew over a distant, almost inaccessible ice shelf, it beamed back photographs of a gargantuan, circular hole gored with mathematical exactness out of the ice, far too perfect to occur naturally. Initially, the researchers thought it could be an optical illusion. But the live video recorded a lit cavern beneath, glowing with a blue-white, cold light. Then, something unusual occurred. The stream started to glitch, just when dark objects seemed to be moving close to the edge of the hole. A few minutes later, the stream was out. Hard drives were remotely destroyed. Servers were taken over by mysterious contractors who claimed government clearance. Before the team could even respond, armed troops encircled their location. Disguising themselves under a treaty enforcement provision, the researchers were thrown out, their gear taken and labeled classified. No reason. No recourse. Only silence. One of the researchers, anonymously, commented, "They overreacted like we had bombed something, not flown a weather drone." The drone never came back. It was taken apart and flown out in military containers. All members of the team were made to sign NDAs. Those who refused were threatened with being ejected from their institutions. Only one part remained, a still image from the drone's feed. It briefly appeared online, of a metallic, symmetrical shape glittering from inside the ice, before being deleted from the internet. But that picture was only the trigger. Soon, unmarked military planes with unauthorized flight routes started showing up in the region. Civilian satellites were diverted, future photographs were limited, and scientists were surreptitiously instructed to divert attention from the area. What had this drone discovered to provoke such a massive reaction? Sources cleared for Antarctic security attested, never had there been such a swift, world-scale lockdown, not for ice shelf collapses, nor evacuations. Whatever they had found, it had rattled the authorities to their core. On the internet, wild theories emerged. There were those who cited antique military reports of no-fly zones over sections of Antarctica where instruments would inexplicably fail. Others asserted that this was proof of a much whispered about alien base, buried under ice, a theory backed up by decades of whistleblower allegations. But for those paying attention, it wasn't the picture that was most unnerving, it was the timeline. Because more than 30 years before, a retired Navy engineer by the name of Brian had already been confronted with something surprisingly familiar. Well before drone video captured international headlines, the same striking phenomenon was observed by Brian, a longtime U.S. naval flight engineer with more than 4,000 Antarctic flight hours under his belt. His own experience, long suppressed by threats and silence, started on a 1987 cargo flight deployed out of McMurdo Station. The operation was diverted at the last moment to check out a research camp that had fallen silent. No radio contact, no signals, nothing. When they got there, the camp was empty. No signs of struggle, no signs of life, nothing. It was as if the whole team had disappeared without leaving a trace. As they flew around the site, Brian's crew and he noticed this huge, round shape in the ice, perfectly circular, faintly glowing. As the plane drew near, things started to malfunction. Navigation went crazy, communications flickered out, backup equipment whirled crazily. The plane veered off course, at the mercy of the wind. Then just as suddenly, systems came back online. But they were 10 miles off course now. Brian reported, as he was supposed to. But in place of explanations, he was confronted with brass hats and men in black business suits. The report was confiscated. The crew interrogated. Brian was told to recant his testimony. When he refused, he was threatened with a court-martial and denied flight duties. His crew was redistributed. One was quietly released with a stress-related diagnosis. Brian never forgot what he witnessed, and he wasn't alone. There were other pilots over the years with whom he made contact, pilots who'd had similar experiences, power breakdowns, unusual lights, even metallic discs lifting off the ice. Some reported planes losing power completely for several minutes at a time, only to find themselves miles off course and with no memory of how they'd arrived there. Finally, Brian took a risk and reached out to investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe. With encrypted messages, he provided flight logs, diagrams, and coordinates. His story coincided with many other stories, even some attributed to Admiral Byrd's secretive 1947 expedition. What Brian possessed was not a story, it was proof. His final solo mission resulted in a complete system blackout and unexplained flight deviation of more than 13 kilometers. To this day, he remembers nothing about what occurred within those 20 missing minutes. His testimony wasn't a warning alone, it was the key to a decades-old secret. Admiral Richard Byrd reported he experienced something out of the ordinary on his 1947 expedition: enormous forests, undisturbed lakes, and wildlife that seemed to be prehistoric in nature. But next came the most shocking detail. Byrd reported that his plane was intercepted by flying disc-shaped vehicles. In his log, the crafts led his airplane to a landing site, where he met tall, human-like figures. They seemed friendly and had advanced knowledge. These beings admonished him regarding the path of destruction that human beings were headed, citing by name nuclear war and ecological collapse. They instructed him to convey this message to the world. Following the encounter, Byrd was permitted to return to his mission, but the weight of their warning stayed with him. When Byrd came back to Washington, he was debriefed, and gagged. His story was discredited, and flight records were sealed. Members of his crew who backed portions of his tale were reassigned or dismissed. Byrd withdrew from public sight, hardly ever mentioning Antarctica after that. Officially, his trip was attributed to regular mapping. Any effort to return to his claims was met with mockery, or censorship. With time, whispers from Byrd hinted that he knew more than he could reveal. During a post-mission interview, he spoke of a threat emanating from the poles, stronger than any foe man had ever known. Written off by historians as a victim of Cold War paranoia, others think that he spoke of the forces he encountered below the ice. The theory picked up momentum when classified documents started to connect Byrd's flight with an uglier, covert enterprise, one which could possibly be ongoing under Antarctica even today. What if Antarctica isn't a cold wasteland, but a lid over something prehistoric, advanced, and very much alive? In the past 20 years, deep ice radar and satellite photographs have uncovered puzzles that look like structured, intelligent design, shapes too consistent to be natural. Whistleblower testimony, such as that of retired flight engineer Brian, coupled with bizarre military behavior, portend a chilling possibility: cities might be buried underneath the ice, and they might not be man-made. It started with radar sweeps in the early 2000s, intended to locate lakes and rivers beneath the ice. But they produced peculiar readings, symmetrical structures, rectangular holes, and metallic reflections where there should only be rock and ice. Most scientists wrote them off as glitches, until one particular find off the coast of Wilkes Land turned the field upside down. There, under a 300-mile-wide impact basin, were heat signatures that didn't correlate with volcanic or geothermal activity. They were too uniform, too orderly. When a 2012 classified mission entered the region, surrounding stations were closed quietly and media access was blanked out. Satellite images revealed construction machinery and vehicle activity in allegedly pristine lands. What were they constructing, or excavating? Before long, pilot accounts followed. One spoke of a jagged metal dome bursting through snow coverings, subsequently covered up with artificial snowstorms. Another spoke of an underground hangar radiating artificial light and protected by electromagnetic camouflage. These were not isolated accounts but part of a developing trend. In 2016, heat satellite imagery revealed ongoing heat radiation emanating from deep beneath Lake Vostok, the largest subglacial lake on Antarctica. Scientists anticipated freezing water. They measured instead heat readings equivalent to a stable source of power or functioning infrastructure. Rumors of a subglacial city gained momentum. This wasn't ruins from ancient times. This was something living. A veteran DARPA analyst who spoke to me on background corroborated it. They discovered something down there. Not ruins. Not machines. Something, still active. His testimony tracked with Brian's reports of disc-shaped craft disappearing into crevices that then closed up behind them, with no evidence left behind. This is not a tale of what used to be. It's about what still is. These are not ruins, they're working installations. Some think these cities could contain beings much more advanced than human beings. Buildings that preceded human existence could be connected to the development of life itself. And if these beings are still present, sequestered under the ice, what do they want? This could be the reason that Antarctica is now one of the most classified, off-limits places on the planet. Why all those abrupt closures of research centers? Why all the unspoken vanishing acts? Why the worldwide blackout? If these subglacial metropolises do exist, then we have to ask, who created them, and are they still observing us? Officially, Antarctica is a land of peace and science, protected by international treaties. But over the past 2 decades, it has transformed into one of the most heavily surveilled and militarized zones on Earth. Research stations have been evacuated without notice. No-fly zones have expanded. Drones are blocked. Scientific data vanishes. The public is told it's for safety, or because of harsh weather. But whistleblowers and investigators suggest something far more unsettling is behind it. Brian's experience is testament enough. A bright, perfect sphere of light in the ice. Electromagnetic interference that crippled his aircraft during flight. Ship that traveled faster than anything he'd ever seen, and a swift government move to quiet him. He was pushed into retirement. His crew redistributed. His reports made to disappear. And he was not the only one. Other pilots, scientists, and contractors were forced to sign fresh NDAs. Some were shifted with no notice. Unmarked planes soared over areas they were not supposed to. And then the drone video in 2014. A secretive expedition researching ice melting took 5 seconds of footage of geometric formations breaking the surface, a huge black dome among them. The video was wiped from public servers. The team was evacuated within 48 hours. Permits were withdrawn. Equipment confiscated. Nobody was ever permitted to return. That incident set off a chain of increasingly restrictive lockdowns. Satellite passes over the region were limited. New security zones were mapped. And a message circulated among scientists: Antarctica was no longer a destination for exploration, it was a repository of secrets. But what do they conceal? Others think these structures are proof of non-human intelligence. From another planet, another dimension, or an old Earth-based society, the possibilities are mind-boggling. Their presence could overturn science, religion, and geopolitics. Governments dread the disruption that would ensue with truth, economic meltdown, social hysteria, loss of authority. Others believe the motive is more sinister: technology superiority. If these cities have operational machines, power sources, or art that surpasses contemporary science, to possess them would be to have dominion over the future. This isn't secrecy, it's a new arms race, which is happening quietly under the ice. Linda Moulton Howe's investigations have uncovered one common thread: since the year 2000, behind almost every Antarctic mission, there is a shadow: DARPA, the NSA, and powerful private contractors operating off the books. Their mission? Keep the truth sealed, no matter the cost. Antarctica may still be beautiful. But it may also be the key to rewriting everything we thought we knew about human history, and our place in the universe.